Hi, and welcome to the Colorado Giants video log. In Denver, find us upstairs at the Tavern and Platt Park in Boulder. Our new home is downstairs at the Lazy Dog, the G-Men Den. We'll be watching every game at both of those locations. This is our first G-Men video log debate powered by Zoom, so please bear with us through any technology learning curve. Now, today we're joined by Charles, an organizer for the Big Blue Denver crew who watched the games at Tavern and Platt Park. Charles believes that the Giants will go from 3-13 to 13-3, or worse to first. Giants have certainly made an exciting offseason, started with the departure of the head coach Ben McAdoo and GM Jerry Reese at the end of last season. And then in the offseason, Giants hired general manager Dave Gettleman from Carolina. And then the overhaul continued at the end of the season with the coaching staff overturned. They brought on Minnesota offensive coordinator Pat Shurmer as head coach, bring in Arizona defensive coordinator James Bettcher as the defensive coordinator. They made some big splash signings like Nate Slaughter to bolster the offensive line, and inside linebacker Alec Ogletree to finally defend the middle of the field. Drafting the biggest name in the NFL draft in running back Saquon Barkley. So there's a lot of reason to believe what Charles is espousing here. So, Charles, I'm going to let you take the floor.
Well, basically, everything that you led off with is perfectly accurate. Only forward progression can only happen when you make change. With Jerry Reese, the general manager, that was never going to happen. And as much as you might have loved some of the older staff, such as Steve Spagnuolo, everyone had to go. There had to be a clean sweep in order for any progression to happen. Let's talk about the players to begin with. With the players, we have our two-time Super Bowl champion, Eli Manning. Eli Manning, some believe, can be a future Hall of Famer. He does have 2 Super Bowl rings, so he does have the experience, the know-how, the knowledge on what it takes to get to a Super Bowl. We also have probably debatably the best receiver in the NFL, in that being OBJ. Now, OBJ is coming off an injury. A lot of people think he might not be 100% as he was last year. However, if you know the Giants and if you know OBJ, that injury probably motivated him more to work harder over the last 12 months than he has ever. He posts out workout videos, posted one just yesterday. He posts working out with Des Bryant. He is passionate about this game. He is passionate about winning.
Right. So I just want to interject. So one of the biggest weaknesses last year was not the skill position players. So the Giants' biggest weakness by a long shot was the offensive line. Now, I know Nate Slaughter was a big splash signing for Dave Gettleman, who loves the hog mollies, which are the big offensive linemen. You know, the signing makes Slaughter the highest paid lineman in the NFL. He's been described as needing help against the upper echelon pass rushers, and he also gave up 51 pressures in 2017. Now, Ereck Flowers is still a concern, even if he's moved to the other side of the line and moving to the tackle position. The only other projected returning starter other than Ereck Flowers starters are Chad Wheeler and Brett Jones, and both of those got their roles last year due to desperation from injuries. Now, the departure of Weston Reichberg leaves the much less regarded center in Brett Jones snapping the ball to Eli. And then rounding out this crew, we have Will Hernandez, who's a rookie, and then Patrick Omasa, who's graded poor by Pro Football Focus. Now, I don't care if you have the best wide receiver, quarterback, and running back in the game. If you don't have an offensive line, it really doesn't matter who the skill position players are.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Adam. Solder brings not only experience, but he brings leadership. And that's what they needed to see on the offensive line. There wasn't any of that coming from any player. There's a lot of mixed feelings about Flowers and whether or not he should have been kept at all, whether he should be moved to the right side. We're going to see that at camp. But some people, it's right now it's about a 50-50 split. You hit it on the head when you mentioned Will Hernandez. Will Hernandez, aside from the Saquon Barkley draft, was the splash Will Hernandez was actually projected to go in the first round. Getting him in the second was an absolute steal. And he is the one who is going to defend, will actually protect Eli Manning and open up that gap for Saquon to run it down the middle. I mean, he's just a beast. Not going to spill out numbers, but he's just an absolute beast. So when you have Nate Solder with the leadership and the experience, and you have you can talk about Flowers being on the right side. He was a first-round draft pick. A lot of people think that they forget that. He was a first-round draft pick, and when they're saying, oh, Flowers needs to go, you just can't boot a first-round draft pick without having consequences. So he can manage that right side. You keep Will Hernandez in the middle, and Eli Manning will be protected. That was Gettleman's primary mission, was the offensive line first, and he got that done.
All right, let's talk about the running backs. So Jonathan Stewart was, one of the first. It was actually the first free agent signing that Gettleman made as soon as he got the GM tag, and he's dedicating over $7 million cap hit to Jonathan Stewart. Now I know Saquon Barkley was no guarantee at the time that we were going to be able to draft him. But that's a huge dedication of cap hit. And then Saquon, I mean, look, we all wanted him. I was, one of the biggest proponents of getting Saquon on this team. But I can't even imagine him living up to the hype. He's only 21, and I don't remember anyone who had these type of expectations in New York.
If you're talking about Saquon Barkley, it is hard. It is hard to predict what's going to happen. What people forget, as they can Google or YouTube his highlights as much as they want to, and the highlights make any player look good. But there was also some downfalls to Saquon Barkley. One being that he's a player that sometimes tries to make things happen when there's nothing there. Sometimes he works too hard to try to make something happen, and that's a fault that he has to work on. Gettleman touched on that as well, and Gettleman said that throughout the preseason, throughout the camps and the volunteer and the OTAs, that he was going to work with Barkley on that to make him not only a seasoned player, but also a future Hall of Famer.
Excellent. Now, one of the reasons that I have doubts that the Giants will be able to go 13-3 is they have the 8th toughest schedule in 2018. Obviously, they have 2 games against Super Bowl champs in Philadelphia Eagles. And then they also have games against Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans, Tennessee, and Jacksonville, who all made the playoffs in 2017. I mean, 7 of their 16 games are played against 2017 playoff teams. 5 of the first 7 games are playoff teams. And, one of those is week 2 that's not included in that is week 2 against Dallas. For a team trying to find their way starting against this brutal schedule is going to be a very difficult road.
It will be. And I'm not going to lie, Adam, it's going to take some time for them to gel. They've been practicing without pads. Once camp comes, they will start with pads. And then we're going to see what the preseason leads into. But it's going to take a while for them to gel. But there's just, at the end of the day, they do have the talent. At the end of the day, they do have the key players in place. And that's all Eli Manning's been needing, was the requisite weapons to get him to the playoffs, to get him to the Super Bowl. That's all he's been needing. Peyton Manning just mentioned the other day that it's going to be an exciting season for Giants fans because Eli is ready. And that's basically what needed to happen. You clean house, you get the key players, and you put them where they need to be. And to sum everything up, Adam, the New York Giants are hungry. The New York Giants are a destiny. They are a legacy and a dynasty. They do have 4 Lombardi trophies plus 4 championships from before 53 years ago when the NFL was created. They're hungry. When you talk about snacks, when you talk about Olivier Vernon, when you talk about Manning, when you talk about Landon Collins and the struggles they've had to go through, they are a hungry team. So that is what makes the difference than a B-type team or a C-type team that are still trying to make it to that level. The Giants made it to that level. The Giants are the football organization of New York City, bottom line. They are a dynasty, and they are hungry. We went from the number 1 defense 2 seasons ago to go into 3-13 with the second overall draft pick. You don't think that's going to hurt a lot of people? You don't think it's going to drive them to work harder? You don't think it's going to drive them? I mean, we got OBJ that I mentioned before with that injury. We are hungry. So it doesn't matter if we have the 8th hardest schedule of the NFL. When you have the heart and you have the will and you have the talent and the people placed in the right places, that's all you need, brother.
So I would add to that list OBJ as somebody who's hungry, and then also Eli Apple, because both of those guys have a lot to prove this year, especially if OBJ goes into the season without a contract. So Pat Shurmur, if his display of the Vikings offense in the NFC Championship game against our division rivals, who we will meet, the Eagles, twice in a season, you could just mark those down as 2 losses. His offense got shut out after the opening drive. Take out that opening drive, Shurmur's offense recorded only 261 total yards in that game. For comparison, 280 yards was the worst team's average yards per game throughout the 2017 season in total.
Yeah, there's definitely a road to redemption that's going to take place, Adam. And some people might even think, is it too much to handle? Is it too much to juggle? I mean, having a new head coach and the new defensive coordinator and the new offensive coordinator and free agent signings and second-round draft picks and all these people and players returning from injury. Is this too much to handle? Well, you know what? They took care of that when they hired Dave Gettleman. They took care of that when they hired Pat Shurmur, because those are the war dogs. Those are the ones that are going to get everybody in line to make this a successful season.
All right. And to wrap this up, just because the Giants don't get from 3-13 to 13-3 or from worst to first in the division doesn't mean they can't make the playoffs. Now, Eli Manning, I don't think, other than perhaps Tom Brady, there's no one else in the league I would rather have on my team rather than Eli Manning in the playoffs. Also, remember one thing about, the first season for a head coach. There are 3 coaches in recent memory that reached 10-plus wins in their first season. Didn't work out too well for them. That was Dan Reeves, Jim Fossil, and Ben McAdoo. So we don't want to repeat those. Where I think his name Coughlin was, I think, 7-9, and I'm gonna have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure that Parcells started 6-10. So I'd rather follow those 2 than follow the other 3 clowns.
And you make valid points, Adam. Those are all good points. I guess we're just going to have to see what the future brings us. And, we're going to have to see how well Saquon Barkley can live up to the hype, how well OBJ can, number 1, earn a contract, and number 2, recover from that injury. We're going to see how well Will Hernandez can live up to his hype, especially coming from a winless season at UTEP. We have hungry players, and there's a lot that needs to be determined. Plus, we haven't even talked about who's the number 2 quarterback going to be. I guess that's a whole another talk for another show.
Yeah, it sounds like you're putting together a teaser for the next show.
Yeah, and we still have let me remind you, Adam, we still have about 2 months left to see where the places are going to be.
Very true. Well, thank you, Charles, for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for watching the Colorado Giants video log. Thanks for sticking with us all season at the Tavern in Platt Park in Denver, and at the look forward to seeing our new home in Boulder at the Lazy Dog this season. And we will see you next time.